What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with another aha demo from the Lifelines Deluxe. We're jumping over Soul Survivor because I did react to that a while back. And we're going to hear the demo version of Less Than Pure. So the album track very much has a 90s aha sound. I still feel like there's certainly evolution and progression, meaning if you listen to a tune from the very early 90s versus Less Than Pure on an early 2000s album, I think you can hear some identifiable sonic differences, but it just has that natural instrument, a bit more like folk rock type sound. Admittedly, there is some guitar shredding by Paul that has a bit more of an electric energy to it. But yes, it's once again notably far away from the danceable electronic keyboard sounds of their mid-80s albums, and thus closer to the more folksy, natural instrument sounding songs they did in the 90s. And of course, I'm oversimplifying here. There's definitely complexity and diversity in both the 80s material and the 90s material, and certainly in the early 2000s songs. But yeah, it sounds like a track that was very much building on what they had done with some of the album work in the 90s. And I am, of course, curious if we will hear a more stripped down or minimal arrangement, if there will be notable differences in Morton's vocal performance, which I get in some cases just because they're getting into the studio and he's maybe recording the lines, singing them for the first time, or at least for the first time after they've gotten to a place where they think it's worthy of recording. Whereas for an album track, you've maybe worked on it a lot more, you've sung it many times, and thus you have a sense of how to hit some of the lines maybe differently vocally. But yes, I'm curious to hear what I can catch on a first listen in terms of the sonic evolution from this to the final album version. Let's give it a listen. This is Aha. The track is a demo version of Less Than Pure, a song eventually on their album Lifelines.
Play
song hit me like, again, thinking of their larger catalog, it's not one I would necessarily think of immediately if forced, and I'm often reluctant to do this because, different songs for different moments, different songs coming to the fore over time, and ultimately some coming back around after maybe not paying attention to them. But if I were to do a short list of Aha songs that I'd be immediately inclined to listen to at any one moment, I don't know if I would think of this song, but it hit me really nice in this moment. Now, I don't hear too many differences with the album version. Maybe the most notable difference is it sounds like those electric and more energetic guitar chords, the Paul shredding that I mentioned in advance, is less prominent here. Even so, there was still a lower end guitar grit and electronic sound that it almost sounded more like a bass than like a lead guitar. But yes, I feel like maybe that aspect stood out to me as the most different, and it was less prominent here, which wouldn't necessarily be a surprise in terms of a demo being a more straightaway arrangement and then more production being added or intensified when it comes to the final version of an album track. But it's interesting because the couple elements that did seem different, or at least that hit me different, one, that lower guitar grit, which seemed a bit less prominent and a bit less notable in the track relative to the final version, it still made me think about that line like time dragging on, because that lower end electronic guitar sound had a bit of a drag to it, like sonically, the way it hit my brain. And so that made me think like, oh, it's almost like an articulation of the concept of time dragging on. And I don't know if I had that experience when I first heard the album version or as I've heard it in time since then. Secondarily, the marching quality of part of the cycling drums came across more clearly to me here. So again, the marching of time, the walking forward in time and being part of the dimension of time, it came across in that like marching style drum riff, which, yeah, like going into this, it's not something I was thinking about in relation to the album tune. I'm guessing in terms of the rhythm and the actual drum beat, it's not terribly different, if different at all. I feel like the pace of the track here in the demo form is more or less the same as the album version, but for whatever reason, those cycling drums and the marching quality to them, it made me think more conceptually or thematically here, and perhaps that's just because, again, over time you notice different things when you re-listen to tunes, or indeed when you listen to different recordings of tunes, or indeed early versions of a track that you've heard the full version of or the album version of already. So yeah, like sonically and vocally, it doesn't sound terribly far away, if much different at all, from the album version. Maybe a bit more stripped down, and again, maybe with a bit less electronic guitar intensity to it, but it hit me differently. So I suppose, above and beyond charting the evolution of Aha songs and getting a sense for how they develop a tune in an early stage relative to a final release on an album, it's enjoyable to go through these because some of them are hitting me differently, and that might be as much about my own subjective experience with a tune and its parts as it is about any actual development and production they made. So in any case, curious to hear what other people have to say about this, and again, even if it might not be a tune I'd put on an immediate short list for, at any given moment, Aha songs that I'd want to hear on the spot, I do think it's a quality track, and it's reflective of a style that I think maybe is less known from them, which of course is just a holdover of the way they took the world by storm in the 80s with that keyboard-driven synth pop type of sound. But ultimately, I think it is reflective of their maturity by this point as musicians and as instrumentalists. So yeah, an enjoyable demo. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.